We're at London City Airport. We're in FeelThere's Embraer E170, part of the E-Jet series version 3, and today we're taking this commuter airliner to Amsterdam. Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today you find me at London City Airport. In the sim it's pretty early in the morning, about 7:20 on the morning of the 26th of January 2021. In the real world it's a little bit later on, it's mid-March, and it's actually quite late in the evening when I'm recording this. However, this is the first morning departure of this aircraft from London City on its route to Amsterdam and then further. And this aircraft arrived about 20 minutes ago into London City, not carrying any passengers. So we need to get set up, get loaded, get the passengers on board and get out of here, and in so doing I'll show you a little bit about this aircraft and how the systems work. First thing we need to do, of course, is to get into the aircraft, so let's get on board. So this is the E-Jet cockpit, and as you can see it's fairly modern, fairly minimalist. You only have the controls you absolutely need. Probably the single biggest control surface is the overhead panel, which has all the traditional things you would expect on an overhead, but is still considerably smaller than the equivalent on a 737 or even a BAE 146. It's a pretty simple aircraft to fly. It follows the dark cockpit philosophy, which is basically any annunciator that is dark is good, and any switch or knob that is at the midnight position is also generally good. So you only change those things if you absolutely have to. Otherwise the aircraft pretty much makes things happen the way they should do by default, so very easy to operate. First thing we do need to do is to get some fuel into the aircraft, because we only have 200 kilos remaining, so I'm going to request the refueling now. Okay, so we need half full tanks. And if I bring up the instrumentation for you, and we go to the fuel page on the MFD, you can actually see the fuel climbing now as it is being loaded in. So, if we go back to the captain's view, this is the view you'll be seeing most of the time, but there are a couple of other views worth looking at. So this shows you the autopilot panel. I've mapped pretty much everything to my hardware MCP, so I won't be touching any of these controls, but there are a few controls on here that we do need. The auto brake is here, the gear is here, etc. Down to the FMS, again you wouldn't use the MCDU units on the screen here, I'd use them, have them popped out separately. But this is where the engine controls are and where you'll actually start and stop the engines. And then on the pedestal you have some audio controls, as well as obviously the throttle quadrant. And on the audio panel you can select which audio sources are live, which radios are live, but you can't tune them. All of the radio tuning is done on the MCDU. So while we're down here I'm just going to enable the marker and COM2 radios, and we'll be ready to shut the cockpit door when the time comes. Okay, if we go to the CDU, got a separate view just for that. A couple of things to note here. This is the radio page, of course, so you've got COM1, COM2. You also have controlled the TCAS and the transponder here, and the nav radios. If we go to page 2, oh no, there you go, there's the ADF. Alright, in 6 months I've never even looked at that second page. While we're here, I'm going to go to the menu page and disable auto land, which is on by default. We don't want that where we're going. Right, while we're here we need to do some initial setup. Got the basic flight plan in there, but I need to do the perf in it. I want a faster cruise, so let's have 290 knots manual. Okay, clearly pressed the wrong thing there. So let's have 290 knots manual. There you go. 100 kilos of fuel reserve. And then this is the page where I've got to do the most work. So the initial cruise altitude will be flight level 210, and that is our final cruise altitude. So the winds will be at 210, and just to work out what they are, let's go to active sky. 318 and 37 is the average. So we'll put that in. Zero fuel weight today, 26361 kilos. And that's going to give us a final gross weight around 31,000 kilos. Let's confirm that. And those figures are good. Departure we can't do at the moment because we haven't got our clearance yet. But I do know what our star's going to be. It will be Redfer 1A or Redfear, I don't know how you'd pronounce this. And we'll insert that as well. And we'll activate it. So we've got the basic flight plan without any procedures other than the star, and we'll fill in the rest once we've got our clearance. But the fuel is all loaded, so I'm going to ask for the catering service, and then I'm going to go and have a listen to the ATIS.
Echo, Golf, Lima, Charlie, airport information, Golf 0720, Zulu, weather, wind 230, at 6, visibility 10,000, sky clear, temperature 2, dew point minus 1, QNH 1018, advise on initial contact, you have information, Golf.
Alright, we have Golf, set the QNH, and we can just
Echo,
watch
Golf.
The catering being loaded. I do quite like watching the GSX animations up close, now that I know that GSX actually creates a camera set, which apparently I never knew before. There goes the guy in his high-vis jacket, loading the food, and he pops out the other door for some reason, but that's fine. Got an aircraft departing there. Looks like a Fokker 50 to me. Luxair, I'm not sure they still fly, but this is a very old schedule. Okay, now let's go over to clearance and get our clearance.
Clearance delivery, Speedbird 8364 with the ATIS request clearance.
Speedbird 8364, what's your parking position?
Parking position, Terminal 1, Speedbird 8364.
Speedbird 8364, cleared to EHAM via the CLN 1 Alpha departure and then as filed. Climb and maintain 3000. Expect flight level 210 within 10 minutes after departure. Departure frequency 130.85. Squawk 7004. QNH 1018.
It's not working very well, is it? Oh, I know. Apparently I have an extra space. There we go.
Cleared via the CLN 1 Alpha departure. Climb into 3000. Expect flight level 210 within 10 minutes after departure. Departure frequency 130.85. Squawk 7004. QNH 1018. Speedbird 8364.
Speedbird 8364. Read back correct. Contact ground control on 120.1.82.
Roger, 121.82. Speedbird 8364.
Okay, so we have that. It's all programmed in. We need to go over to ground on 121.825. There goes the last of the catering supplies. So we'll get back in the cockpit. And then all I need to do is the takeoff performance. So we need to know the surface wind. Active sky is your friend there again. 230 at 6. Put that in there. Remember, it's headwind 4, crosswind 4. And then we need the V speeds, and I actually have the aircraft manual, the FeelThere aircraft manual, that is to say, in my document library in ForeFlight. So we want takeoff mode TO1, and it's a flaps 4 departure, which is 31,000 kilos. So that's V1 108, VR 111, V2 118, VFS 184. to check. The climb profile's fine, cruise is fine, descent is fine, landing is empty until we get our actual arrival. And that's pretty much it with the FMS setup. All we need to do is to ask for startup when we're ready. So, catering is done, and it's time now, I think, to ask for our boarding, and then we'll finish off a bit more work on the systems, and we'll be able to get the engine started and get out of here. So, let's request boarding from GSX. Open the cargo hatches. Hatches, doors, cargo doors, I don't know exactly what the right terminology is there. We'll pop outside and we can see all of that happening. And in a moment we'll also be able to see the pilot and the first officer walking from the terminal. Now, I did talk about how I did that in my last video about GSX. It is a hack. It's quite a clever hack, I think, but it is a hack nonetheless, and I shall reveal my secret momentarily. Alright. It's getting a little bit lighter, as you can see. Time is 7:35 and our off the block time is 8 AM, so we've got 25 minutes. Should be alright. I'm going to set the auto brake to RTO, rejected takeoff, because that's something I need to do. I've got checklists, so I'll bring out the checklist when we get to the before start checklist. The rest of them have already been done. And back outside, there is the first officer. You'll see him enter the cockpit, and then the flight attendants will emerge from the building, and we'll be able to see kind of how the fakery works. Just bring that view around a little bit. Keep an eye on the terminal building, and in particular on the ground power unit you can see at the top right. And in a moment or so we will see something emerging. There you go. So, defying matter, the flight attendant now walked through, as the next one is doing, through the GPU. Now basically they're coming through the building and appearing to exit through various parts of the windows and doors. I can't get it any more accurate than that. The way it's done is actually very simple. There you go. I just caused the crew bus and the passenger bus to park further away from the aircraft, which I did by telling GSX that the aircraft wingspan is considerably longer than it actually is, and then they leave the bus and walk through the building into the aircraft. There are both flight attendants, all 4 flight attendants boarded and waiting for the passengers. Speaking of which, time to turn on the fasten seatbelt sign. That will cause certain activities to happen. Including this boarding music. Now, I wanted to use the real boarding music for BA, which is a classical piece by Dilib called Flower Duet. I couldn't find a recording of it that I could use on YouTube royalty free that was any good. So my provider of audio and video does have a version, but it is not very good. For being honest, doesn't sound much like the BA version. So in the end I settled for the Blue Danube, which they had in their library, which is royalty free, and doesn't sound too far away from the sort of thing the British Airways would probably use. Okay, we're imminently expecting the passengers. There they are, walking from the terminal, and in fact if we change the view here, you can see them walking up, and in fact if I go all the way around the views, of which there are many, as you can see, including inside the passenger bus. Oh, I've gone right round past it, and because of the way I've got my key set up I can't actually go back, so let's try that again. There you go. And in fact this view here is a little bit better. Must see if I can shortcut that directly. Again, the animations are interesting. Some of the passengers are walking like, well, I don't know, they've got something wrong with them. Others are fine, you know, perfectly normal gait. So who knows what happens there. Anyway, passengers, I like the way they turn and go into the cabin actually. I think that's quite a nice touch. Anyway, they're boarding. We need to do some work here, so I need to adjust the map page and get all my extra details on. There you go. I'll zoom out that map a little bit. On the plan page you can just see the flight plan, you can obviously zoom out and see the whole thing. But I'll leave it there. We probably won't use this much as I have for flight to track my flight. And then back on the systems, back to the status. All is good at the moment. We will run through more of those pages shortly. Okay, there's the passengers boarded. GSX will tell me as much in a moment. And we will close up the aircraft. Thank you, GSX. Let's close the cargo doors.
Ground 9027, request taxi.
9027, taxi via to runway 27.
Taxi to runway 27 via 9027.
And let's close the rear door. Front door will leave open for a few minutes whilst we're doing the load sheets, etc. And the passengers are getting settled down. And while we're waiting for that, let's just check the time. 7:41. Yeah, we need to be starting up at about 7:45. We've got a few minutes to wait now. It's taken me most of my sim time for the last few months, pretty much since I did the last flight video actually, to get this aircraft properly integrated into the sim. Much more complicated than any other aircraft I've ever done before, and needed a much greater degree of synchronization to make things work. And we'll shut the front door now, and that will silence the music and
flight attendants, slides and cross-check.
start some cabin announcements. So yeah, it's taken a long time to get to this point. I'm pretty happy I can do this now. There are still some teething problems, and there are some problems with the synchronization. I might talk a little bit more about how I did that when we're en route, but to be honest, I think that's really something for a separate video, which I dare say I'll be doing fairly soon, because some of those techniques are probably useful to other cockpit builders. But let's just say it was a long and difficult road. Right, all the passengers are in, and they're all sitting down. We've got the FMS set up the way we need it. We've got the display set up. The autopilot needs configuring, and I'll do that as we start our engines. And everything on the flight plan and performance data is done. So yeah, we're pretty good so far. Right, let's have the checklist out. And let's ask for our engine startup.
Ground Speedbird 8364. Request startup.
Speedbird 8364, startup is approved.
Roger, startup approved. Speedbird 8364.
Okay, so startup is approved. Let's go through the before start checklist. Fuel quantity verify, yes. MCDU verify set, yes. Altimeters verify set, yes they are. 1017. Passenger signs on, yes they are. Departure brief completed. Well, it's only me, so let's assume yes. Red beacon on. Beacon light goes on, that'll trigger some more announcements. Parking brake set or off, it is set.
Good morning, ladies
Before
and
start
gentlemen.
checklist is
Captain
complete.
Mark Adams and
Engine
the entire
startup
crew
checklist.
would like to welcome you aboard. May I
Over to the
kindly
overhead.
ask you to fasten your
AC
seatbelts
power,
now, making sure they are pulled tight.
auto,
And for your own
yes.
safety, we
TRU 1
recommend
and 2 to
that you
auto,
keep your
yes.
seatbelts
TRU
fastened
ES, that's
during
to
the
auto,
entire flight.
yes. Nav
My name
lights
is Karen Sharp.
on.
I'm the person
They
on
go
your
on.
flight
APU
today and do wish you a
start.
pleasant stay on board. You are welcome to use your own electronic
the APU.
equipment after takeoff. When the fasten seatbelt signs above you have been switched off.
APU will take
The use
30
of
seconds
mobile
or
phones
so
is not generally
to start, so we
permitted
need to
on
pause
board
until
our
that's done.
aircraft, and therefore all mobile phones should be switched off completely at this time. Further details are available in your in-flight magazine, which you may find in the seat
You
pocket
can hear
in
it
front
starting
of
up
you.
now.
May we
That's
please
the
remind
real
you
startup
once
sound
more
from the
that
real
you store
aircraft. I
heavy
actually have
baggage under your
2
front
additional sound packs
and not in
installed
the overhead
that
compartments,
override the
as they
defaults.
may shift during
The default
flight.
sound is
Thank you.
frankly nothing to write home about, but this is a lot more accurate. APU at 60%.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will acquaint you now with the safety features of this aircraft. Please pay attention to the flight attendant.
90%.
First of all, we demonstrate how to fasten and unfasten your seatbelt.
APU is
If there
up.
is a loss of cabin pressure, oxygen
Go
masks
to
will
the
automatically drop
environmental
from the
control.
cabin ceiling. If that happens, pull
Bleed
one of the
valve
masks
is open, so
towards you
APU
and
bleed
press
air.
the opening firmly over your
Yes,
nose
correct.
and mouth.
Displays on
Never
verified
assist
check,
any
yes.
children travelling with you.
Engines 1 and 2,
Your life
ignition to
jacket is
auto.
under your seat. Please observe the following demonstration.
Yep.
Pull the life
and then we
jacket
can
over your
start
head.
engine 1 and
Attach the
engine 2.
straps to the
Now,
hook in front. Then pull
if
the
you
belt
look at
until
the
it is tight.
ICAS, that's the display
Just
second
before
from
you
the
leave the
right,
aircraft, pull
you can
these
see
red
the
tabs
4 big dials
to inflate your
on
jacket.
column for each
necessary,
engine,
use the rubber
and
tubes
we've
to
got the
inflate
N1,
it.
which is basically
Should
the
you
engine
leave the
RPM or
aircraft
the engine
through an
thrust
emergency exit
on
over
the
the
top, and the
wings,
temperature,
do not inflate your
interior
jacket
turbine
until you have
temperature
left
on
the
the
aircraft.
bottom. And then beneath
This
that there's a
small
line saying
signal lamp
N2.
lights up on
Watch the
contact
N2.
with water
That number
when
will
you
go
pull
up,
the
and
plug
when it
out
hits
of the battery.
22%, I
You
will
will find an
inject fuel,
information
and
card
the
explaining
engine
all
will start.
safety instructions
Temperature will rise to
in
about
the seat pocket in
520
front of
degrees
you.
and settle,
Please
and
take
then the
particular
oil
note of the
pressure will
location
rise
of
and the
the
oil
8
temperature will rise, and once the oil
emergency exits, which
temperature
are
is
all
out of the yellow and
identified by
into
the word
green,
exit.
we know we've got a good
Illuminated
start.
escape path markings
And
will guide you to these
just for
exits.
extra fun,
And please keep in mind
I'm
that
gonna
the next
step back
available
outside the
exit
aircraft.
might be behind you.
and I think
If you
there's a
have
little
any
animation
further
that
questions,
happens
please
when
do
the
not
engine
hesitate
starts.
to
So
ask
why
one of
don't
your
we
flight attendants.
bring our viewpoint
Ladies
down
and gentlemen,
and
we are
have
now
a
ready
look.
for takeoff.
Well, he says that, obviously. I have to go back here to actually start the engines. Right, so we're going to run.
Cabin is ready.
Thank you. We're going to start engine 2 first. You always start the rightmost engine. Don't quite know why. So I'll move it to start and then watch the procedure. So, engine starting. Pop out. N2 is rising. If it were a bit brighter, you'd see the fan spinning. $18, 19, 20, 21, and there's 22. Inject fuel. So you get some smoke coming from the engine, and all the ground vehicles mysteriously disappear. Thank you, GSX. That's most convincing. Right, so let's watch the temperature. Stabilising at about 519, 520. Oil temperature is going green now. So that's a good start on number 2. Now we need to start number 1. Starting number 1. We're not going to watch this one, we've seen the animation once already. $18, 19, 20, 21, and 22. Fuel inject. We have start. Temperature's rising, M1 is rising. Oil temp is rising, oil pressure is rising. Fuel flow is good. Temperature should settle. And the oil temperature is climbing to the green. Oil temperature is green. We have good start. Both engines. Back to the checklist. APU should now go off. That'll take about 30 seconds. Bleed air should now be on both engines, and it is. air condition packs both on, and they are. That's the engine startup checklist complete. After start checklist, flight controls, verify and check. So, the flight control page, hydraulic systems are now all energized, so we can move the ailerons, the elevators, and the rudder. Pitch and trim, verify. Let's set the pitch trim at 4. Takeoff data, verify. Let's just quickly double check it in the MCDU. Wind is still good. V speeds are still good. ICAS checked, yes. Flaps, verify and set. Flaps to 4 for takeoff. After start checklist is completed. Right, up on the autopilot, on the MCP here, I'm going to switch the auto throttle mode to FMS control. I'm going to arm the auto throttle. I'm going to set VS mode and an initial climb rate of 1500 feet per minute. I'm not going to let the FMS do that because it gets a little bit exuberant and it will exceed my climb limit. So we're not going to do that. VNAV and LNAV will both be armed when we're en route. 400 feet is the earliest the autopilot can go in. 600 feet is the earliest the VNAV can go in. Sorry, the LNAV rather, and then the VNAV will go in once we've reached our initial climb altitude and we start getting our step climb instructions. Alright then, I think we're pretty much ready to go, so why don't we ask for a taxi?
Grant Speedbird 8364, request taxi.
Speedbird 8364, taxi via to runway 27.
Via to runway 27, Speedbird 8364.
There's no taxiways being announced because there is a bug with the taxiway data, so apologies for that, I haven't been able to fix it so far. We need the TCAS to TA. I'm also going to put in the tower frequency just to save myself doing it when we're taxiing down. Now we're going to have the cockpit lights off because we need to adjust our eyes to the dim light, and I will put the cabin lights off when we're on our taxi as well. Taxi checklist, ICAS verify, yes, all good. Brake temp green, yes. Takeoff briefing complete, let's say it is. Taxi checklist is complete. Alright, we've got our taxi instructions. As soon as I remove the parking brake, we're going to move, so even at idle thrust this aircraft will move, and in fact it will get up to quite a clip on even idle thrust. One of the reasons I loaded more fuel than I actually need for this sector is if it were much lighter, the tow brakes would not actually bring it to a halt, so that would be a pain. So it's pretty exuberant when it comes to the amount of power applied, so just be aware of that. Let's have the taxi lights on, and let's parking brake off, and we're moving. Let's bring the nose around. Nice slow turn here. It's just dawn now, the sun has just crept over the horizon, I can just see it. By the time we get to Amsterdam it's going to be still relatively early but fully light. Really I wanted to show off the spectacular lighting effects you get with the enhanced atmospherics. I know a lot of people think that the orange is a little bit overdone, and actually at certain points it really can be. If it's overcast then you get basically an entire orange sky, which is really not right, but looking like this it's really quite pretty. Taxi lights seem to be more ahead than below, so you don't get much illumination of the apron, but you certainly get plenty of illumination ahead of us. I'm going straight onto the runway here. for the ear scratching, but it was itchy. Strobe light on as we're entering the runway. All of this is on idle thrust, by the way. I've put no power in at all so far. And we're going to get up to probably as high as 25 or even 30 on the taxi if I don't put the brakes on. Right, cabin lights can go off, so the passengers can get used to the dim. Emergency lights are now on. There should be an announcement to that effect, but I don't have one recorded. Those announcements, by the way, are coming courtesy of a package called Sim Sounds. They're not built into the aircraft. I like Sim Sounds for those aircraft that lack lots of built-in sounds. It's a pretty good thing. Like the taxi bump sound you can hear, that's coming from Sim Sounds. There's a wind sound, there's a bunch of other sounds that you will or won't notice coming from them. Alright, so I am going to go around the taxi loop here.
Speedbird 8364. Contact tower on 118.07.
Because even though most pilots would go to the end and just turn round,
Speedbird 8364.
the problem I have is that Pro ATCX often doesn't recognise you having passed the hold short point if you do that. Sometimes it does, but mostly it doesn't, so I'm going to go around the taxi loop because I kind of need to, even though there's nothing else coming in that I'm aware of. Strobe lights off, as we're now off the runway. I'm not sure if they would actually do that. No, this guy actually appears to be landing. Not had that happen before. Let's go over to the tower.
Tower, Speedbird 8364. Holding short, runway 27, ready for departure.
Speedbird 8364. Hold your position. I will call you.
Holding our position. Speedbird 8364.
Let's go to the map page. So we'll need that. I'm pretty sure this guy's going around. He's way too high. By the way, you'll notice I'm keeping you on the host view in Sim rather than this view, the in-cockpit view that I would normally use. That's intentional. I think this is a much better view for you to watch, to see what's going on the flight, than trying to sort of see my view here, which will not be anywhere near as detailed for you, and also has the wrong perspective and you only see part of it. So there's no real way to impart the visual effect of seeing the 180-degree view without actually being here. But I will keep it picture in picture, as you can see, and this is pretty much the setup that we will use. Set the departure frequency into COM2. Well, while we're waiting, it's a good time to do the before takeoff checklist. So takeoff min fuel quality verified.
Speedbird 8364.
Yes.
Line up runway 27.
Lining up runway 27. Speedbird
Transponder
8364.
TA all yes. Takeoff config set. And in fact, let's just check that.
Takeoff okay.
Yeah, the aircraft likes it. I'm actually going to put some power in for the first time in the taxi. Auto brake to RTO, it is. Speed brakes armed, they are. Before takeoff checklist is completed. I'm going to do a manoeuvre I've seen real pilots do at this airport. I'm not going to follow the taxi line around. Instead, I'm going to follow this line of lights at the rear and slow down a little bit. And then when I get my nose almost all the way over, like now, I'm going to put full left wheel in, come around, and I should get on
Speedbird
the nose.
8364. Wind 230
With
at
extra
6.
runway.
Runway 27 cleared for takeoff. Good flight.
Runway 27 cleared for takeoff. Speedbird 8364.
Let's have the landing light on, and we will push the engines to 50% and watch them stabilise. They're stable. Set takeoff power, and away we go. .80 knots. V1, rotate. Positive rate, gear up. .400 feet, autopilot engage.
Speedbird
600 feet, LNAV engage.
Contact departure on 130.85.
130.85. Speedbird
Flaps to
8364.
3. We'll go to COM2.
Departure for Speedbird 8364. With you passing 1,300.
Should get a good view of London as we turn.
Speedbird 8364. Radar contact. Continue via Charlie Lima November 1 Alpha departure route. Climb to 3000.
Via EGLC 1 Alpha departure. Climbing to 3000. Speedbird 8364.
Speedbird 795. Maintain present altitude.
Present altitude, Speedbird 795.
German wings
Flaps coming up.
460. Maintain present altitude.
Present altitude, German wings 460.
Speedbird 1475. Maintain present altitude.
Present altitude, Speedbird 1475.
Just come in past the Olympic Park. Straightening out, ready for our next turn. That sort of white splotch over there is Stapleford. It's just right to the right of you, just behind the window stanchion actually now. Is Stapleford Airfield. For whatever reason, because the sim date is January, it thinks it should be snowy, even though the weather is not snowy.
North Shuttle 1302.
So you just get this isolated island of snow, which is a bit odd. Now, this aircraft here could be a problem, because it does appear to be. There you go, there's the TCAS. I'm probably going to get a, climb.
Maintain present altitude.
Yeah, there you go.
Speedbird 795.
I'm not going to do it.
German
I know that is, of course,
460. Reduce speed to
a deadly sin, but
190.
I know we're not going to collide,
190.
because for one thing, collisions are not on.
Increase climb. Descend now. Clear of conflict.
So that was a pretty near miss.
Speedbird 599 with you. Passing flight level 804000.
Speedbird 599. Roger. Descent to 4000.
Descending to
And that's really an example of how the Pro ATCX doesn't really interface very well with ultimate traffic. So you get, it's very, very busy airspace at the moment. You get collisions like that. Obviously in the real world that would have been a very serious near miss. But we're in Simland here, and I'm not really doing emergency procedures. I guess if I'd done it and I'd climbed out very quickly, that'd be fine. But it would be a major disruption for my passengers, and ultimately I didn't need to, so I didn't.
Departure. Speedbird 761. With you passing flight level 80 for 4000.
We're about to turn on to leg 4 off the SID.
Speedbird 761. Roger. Descent to 4000.
And hopefully we'll get a climb
Descending to
instruction momentarily.
4000. Speedbird 761.
So many BA flights around. Pretty much all the call-outs are for Speedbird, so I've got to listen out for my call sign.
Descent to 1000. Speedbird 795.
German wings 460. Reduce speed to 200.
Slowing down
looks
to
rather
200.
pretty, though.
German wings 460.
Speedbird 8364. Climb to flight level 150.
There we go.
Climbing to flight level 150, Speedbird 8364.
I'll engage level change mode for that.
North Shuttle 1302. Maintain present altitude.
Present altitude. North Shuttle 1302.
Speedbird 699. Maintain present altitude.
Right, after takeoff checklist, landing gear up, yes, flaps up.
Ryanair
Climb thrust set.
8344.
After takeoff
Expedite
checklist
climb
is
to
complete.
flight level 70.
Expediting climb to flight
Now we're on our way up.
Ryanair
Turn on the windshield
Speedbird
heating.
761. Maintain present altitude.
I'm
Present
gonna
altitude.
keep
Speedbird 761.
the fast seatbelt sign on for a while yet.
599. Descent to flight level 160.
Descending
Thrust
to
levers
flight
climb.
160. Speedbird 599er.
1979. Maintain present altitude.
Present altitude 1979er.
The next major event will be passing 18,000, at which point we're going to sound a barrow.
10 for 5,000.
Speedbird 202.
Okay, so,
Roger.
cabin lights can come back on.
Descending to 5,000. Speedbird 202.
So there's now little to no chance of passengers having to deboard rapidly in the dark. And I would say that's a fairly successful takeoff. So this will be a two-part video.
Speedbird 699. Descent to 4,000.
Descend to 4,000.
First part is going to be out to
Speedbird 761.
CLN and just out over the North Sea.
Present altitude.
And
Speedbird
we'll break there and pick
761.
it up again for the en route sector and the arrival into Amsterdam. It's a relatively short flight, so although we spent a long time on the ground, and we'll spend a decent amount of time on the ground at Amsterdam as well, the actual flight segment's quite short.
1979. Descent to flight level 160.
Descent to flight
So,
level
other than
160,
this aircraft, which is of course new, there is relatively little new in the sim at the moment. So I've got sim sounds, which I've mentioned earlier, which I bought and installed.
Departure Aeroflot 2580 with you, passing flight level 160 for flight level 110.
Aeroflot 2580. Roger. Descent to flight level 110.
Descending to flight level 110.
You get the
Aeroflot
stuff here and there, but
2580.
nothing significant. And as I mentioned in my previous video, in fact what the whole video is about, I've got GSX running synchronised across the two machines so that when we get to Amsterdam on the other end, I will be able to get the jetway to attach on both machines simultaneously, and actually you'll be able to see passengers deboarding at the same time on both. If we'd been watching outside earlier on at London City, you would have seen...
Speedbird 761.
Oh, here we go.
Descent to 4,000. Descending to 4,000. Speedbird 761. Aeroflot 2580. Slow to
if we looked earlier at London City, you would have seen the staircases were attached, same as they're attached.
Speedbird 771.
So
reduce speed to 220.
that's been a definite improvement in terms of realism. I really do like that.
Speedbird
It is a little bit flaky and it's very dependent on the state being perfect before you go. But then to be fair, the same can be said about this aircraft. In fact, if you notice a jump cut just before takeoff, that was because I discovered that when I started the APU on this machine, it didn't start on this machine, which it's supposed to do. It's supposed to be synchronized. I'm going to need to check the mechanism that is used for that, because it needs to be reliable, because the landing light will not come on if you don't have APU or engine power. Now, of course, on this machine I had engine power, but the engines on this machine never start. Now, maybe I probably should synchronize the engine start so that it's got engine power and then it won't matter so much, but that was an example of what went wrong.
210.
Okay, up to 210.
Maintain flight level 210, Speedbird 8364.
Traffic.
Speedbird 8364. Contact London on 128.47. Bye-bye.
128.47, Speedbird 8364.
Right, 128.475.
KLM 1007.
And let's check in.
London, Speedbird,
I'm going to get the co-pilot to do the radios now.
Speedbird 8364 identified.
13, and turn on the radio chatter, so it'll be a little bit livelier. Now we can focus on the flight plan. So I'm going to set flight level 210 in the flight plan at CLN. That pretty much matches our current profile. I'm going to go to FMS VNAV.
Transition altitude.
There's the transition. We're going to standard barrow.
Code 850, continue to descend flight level 90.
Flight level 90,
and taxi lights go off. They could have gone a full one again.
33 Bravo, right, 70.
Proper climb is imminent.
70, Bravo.
At that point we'll be entering our cruise phase.
157 Alpha out of 2,000 feet on a constant departure. 157 Alpha, full flight in from 7710.
We are 5 miles from CLN,
coming up.
and therefore a couple of minutes from the end of the video. So all in all, I'm pretty happy with the performance of the aircraft, but there are little problems like the one I mentioned earlier. Sometimes the synchronization doesn't work the way it should. I need to check and find out why that was happening, because that's the second or third time that has happened. It might just be that I moved the APU control too rapidly, and it wasn't able to pick up all the signals that it needs. But I really do need those things to be synchronized, otherwise the aircraft systems get out of sync and the lights are wrong and other things are wrong. This is not just a dummy model, that's the thing with this aircraft. Many other aircraft you can get away with that because they all have standard lights attached in the aircraft config file. This does not. The lights are built into the model. So things like the taxi light and landing lights are actually special lights built into the model. And if the systems aren't working the way they're supposed to, they will not come on.
And can we reduce speed now? 725?
725, maintain speed.
It's a clear but hazy day. The weather will be largely clear all the way across, but then we'll get clouds as we approach the Dutch coast. The haze is never going to go away. In fact, the haze is pretty excessive. A lot of people think the haze in EA mode is really quite excessive. We're hoping that LM will tweak it a little bit, because you can barely see the ground. However, we are now just leaving the British coast and heading out over the North Sea. So this seems like an opportune moment to end part 1, and I'll say thank you for sticking with me if you've watched the whole thing through. Thank you even if you've been skipping forward or indeed have only watched the last few minutes. Every little helps. And watch out for part 2, which should be coming in the next few days, and I look forward to seeing you back on the channel very soon.